Hi, welcome to Health Talk from Mars. It's out of this world. And today I want to talk about a book that everyone who's interested in longevity and increasing their health span needs to read. So stay tuned. So, fasting and calorie restriction has been around for thousands of years. Almost every mammal on Earth practices fasting and calorie restriction, not because they want to, but because circumstances happen where they can't get food, or they're ill, or they're sick. So, this information is really kind of critical because it makes you understand that all humans are basically genetically programmed to fast. And fasting is something, along with calorie restriction, that will increase your health span. That means that you won't have to take medications, you'll live longer, and you'll live generally healthier. So, the name of the book that I'm talking about, that everyone needs to read, is Dr. Valter Longo's The Longevity Diet. Dr. Longo is a professor in the studies of longevity at the University of Southern California. I had the opportunity to meet him at his first conference that he gave in 2018. So Dr. Longo is one of the foremost experts at calorie restriction and also with fasting. And he's developed a methodology of fasting whereby almost everyone can take part in this. And it's safe and they can do it more easily. Most people are intimidated by fasting because they just feel like, oh my God, I'm hungry during the day. And when you use the word hunger, hunger implies a physiological state where you're actually deficient in calories. But that's not true. What people refer to as hunger is really appetite. So, and it's an intimidating thing to go without eating food for more than a day. And so I'm here to tell you that Valter Longo's book, The Longevity Diet, will inspire you to undertake a little bit more research into fasting and actually to progress to actually doing your first fast if you haven't fasted before. So without further ado, I'd like to get into some more details about the book. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why this book is really important if you want to learn about calorie restriction and fasting. Valter Longo is one of the premier researchers of calorie restriction and fasting. He trained under Dr. Roy Walford, who was one of the pioneers in research related to longevity and calorie restriction. Dr. Longo has now taken this to a new level. And in the book, he's carefully researched and done studies on not only bacteria and viruses and yeasts, but also various types of mammals and including humans. And he's able to see that there are a number of biomarkers that take place during the phenomenon of fasting or calorie restriction. And these biomarkers indicate really how healthy a person is or how young they are, because you're only as young as your biochemistry. So knowing this research that Dr. Longo has done is really quite critical to understanding fasting, because fasting, some people believe, really that's just sort of, stuff that hippies do out in the field, out when they're camping out. But no, really, Dr. Longo has presented really in-depth, valuable research that you need to take a look at if you want a deeper understanding of fasting. Dr. Longo presents in his book 5 pillars of longevity. These are critical pillars because when you look at them in context, it gives you a broader outlook to study the effects of calorie restriction and fasting. So the first is juventology, the study of youthfulness. The second are clinical trials, which are critical in any type of research. The third are centenarian studies. The fourth are epidemiological studies. And the fifth is the study of complex systems and how this all relates together. So, as an example, Dr. Longo grew up in a small town called Maluccia in the province of Calabria, which is actually considered one of the 5 or 6 blue zones of the world. And a blue zone, if those of you that don't know what a blue zone is an area that they've determined where people live the longest and have the longest health span. That means that they live without Alzheimer's disease. They don't live in a wheelchair in a nursing home for 20 to 30 years. So I think, Dr. Longo, in presenting the centenarian studies, are really critical. To demonstrate this, one of the features of the Okinawans are one of the 5 blue zones of the world. They have a saying before each meal that they say, and that is hara hachibu. Hara hachibu means eat until you're 80% full. And I think that's a great little adage to say before you eat, because most people, including myself, we eat till we're 120% full. And that's not going to make a healthy lifespan or a healthy health span. So we want to pay particular attention to areas in the world where people live longer and they calorie restrict. So the Okinawans, for 50 years, 80% of their calories came from sweet potatoes, and because of the war and the embargo that took place. And so the side benefit of eating purple sweet potatoes as 80% of your calories is that you're going to live longer and healthier. Now, if you ate 80% of your calories from Twinkies, that's a different story. But we're talking about a healthy food, which is one of the top 20 foods on my food list to eat for health and longevity: purple sweet potatoes. Fasting can be a very intense experience for many people, especially if they're doing it for the first time. I'm on day 4 of a fast right now. I do about 3 fasts a year, and this fast will be 11 days. This one I'm doing with broth, which is, one type of fast. Now, Dr. Longo, to initiate people into the world of fasting, has created what's called a fasting-mimicking diet. Fasting-mimicking diet is a particular program whereby there's a certain amount of carbohydrate, fat, and protein, and a certain amount of calories. And you can actually eat these foods that he created in a packet. He sets you up for a 5-day fast. So that's usually what I tell people is their first fast. They should shoot for at least 3 days. 3 days is going to get you to the promised land. That means you're going to start making ketones and breaking down bodily fats. And so once you do that, that stimulates the body to make stem cells. Stem cells are used to create new tissues wherever they're needed in the body. So this brilliant formulation that Dr. Longo has come up with has enabled many, many thousands of people to fast that may not have been able to fast before. Now myself, I've created several different types of fast, one of which is a juice fast. I generally try to make it really simple. I use apple juice, but I dilute the apple juice down, and people get scared like, oh, there's so many grams of carbohydrates, so many grams of sugar in there. Is that going to make my blood sugar go off the charts? And the answer in most cases is no. Actually, by calorie restricting and just doing those simple carbohydrates like apple juice, you're actually able to gain all of the benefits of fasting, which are, what Dr. Longo has noted, an increased level of anti-inflammatory compounds in the body, lower levels of insulin-like growth factor, which stimulate the growth of cancer cells, decreased levels of insulin and glucose, which is really important. And so these factors he studied in a number of different species and found that in almost all cases, fasting and calorie restriction to a certain level actually did really wonders at improving all of these biomarkers. So over the course of, many years, the last 50 years, there's been so many studies on calorie restriction and enhancing people's health and well-being. And so Dr. Longo has taken that a step further, and allowed for people that might be a little bit skittish about fasting to delve into it. Another method of fasting is the Buchinger method, which is in Germany, which I visited a couple of years ago, and I did their program for their 2 weeks. And that was a program in which they used vegetable broth. So vegetable broth is an alternative to using apple juice or some other type of juice. And so the benefits there is that you're going to have much less in the way of sugar, and definitely you're going to have less sugar spikes on there. But as mentioned, when you calorie restrict, it's okay to do carbohydrates, even simple carbohydrates. They won't affect your blood sugar nearly the same way as when you're eating a bunch of other calories. Okay, let's take a look at Dr. Longo's recommendations that he has on dietary programs. So the big thing about coming off of a fast is that you obviously want to go and make sure that what you're putting into your system is as healthy as could be. It's kind of like cleaning your car out after, a few weeks after you get your car detailed. You want to make sure no one comes in with popcorn or some other food that's going to get all over the place. The same like coming off a fast. That's actually the most critical part of the fast, is coming off of it. So Dr. Longo recommends a very high-based plant food diet with low levels of protein and high levels of carbohydrate. So this is a diet that's been shown in many, many studies to be very, very beneficial about extending your health span and also your lifespan. So what we want to see is not too much protein. I can't stress that enough. Increased levels of protein in the diet can cause some problems related to heart disease and also to cancer, two of the major killers that we see today. So Dr. Longo does recommend some small fish eating because small fish contain omega-3 fatty acids. I think he would be a strong proponent of algae. Algae is where the fish get their omega-3 fatty acids from. He doesn't recommend really putting much in the way of animal products into your diet because animal products are higher in protein and higher in iron that can cause damage to your tissues. So really, this is an excellent book to see. There's a number of fasting books that I do recommend for people, but this is my number one getting started with fasting and calorie restriction that I think you will find extremely inspiring. There's a great podcast that Rich Roll did with Valter Longo. If you look up Rich Roll and Valter Longo, you'll see an interview with Dr. Longo. And if you Google Dr. Longo, you will see that he's appeared in many, many podcasts because he's quite a brilliant researcher and has really done his homework. And I advise everyone out there that's listening to this to go get a copy of his book and read through it thoroughly. And he has some recipes in the back and some meal plans as well to get you going, to be the healthiest that you can possibly be. If you like this video and found it to be informative, click like and subscribe below. And I want to thank you from Health Talk from Mars. It's out of this world. Stay tuned for further episodes.